I work for. I work for the American people.
Well, if we don't aid Ukraine, Putin will walk all over Ukraine. We will lose the war, and we could be fighting in Eastern Europe in a NATO ally in a few years. Americans won't like that.
And they're playing a time game with politics on this. Couldn't that pressure put to bed?
If you're on the left, there's a big problem. Trump's going to get reelected.
So I think you guys pretty much heard in that opening montage what this entire thing is really and truly about. It's not even really about immigration. It's really more about getting money to that failing conflict in Ukraine, which of course you have Tucker Carlson in Moscow right now about to interview Vladimir Putin, and apparently he's requested to also interview Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine. But don't worry, that video will probably be coming up later on tomorrow evening, probably the third video of the day. I want to go ahead and try to get as much content as I can out before next Thursday. I'm not going to be around. And of course, Wednesday's probably going to be a light day, and Friday's probably going to be a light day too. But still, though, we got to talk about this immigration bill and exactly why it is that this immigration bill got nuked. Most of us wanted this bill nuked because if you actually look at the specifics of the bill and you actually see exactly what was in said bill, then you will obviously see that this right here was a bad deal. Very bad deal. Extremely bad deal. So bad that Mitch McConnell has nuked it. So bad that Mike Lee damn near disowned Republican Senator James Lankford, who, by the way, has got this little thing here on his record about age of consent. Not exactly what we call somebody that you want in the Senate, but of course, if you want to keep your party intact, more than likely you're going to endorse him. I personally think that former President Trump should have actually produced a primary challenger, but seeing how it is that Oklahoma has this habit of producing much, much more, let's just say, liberal to moderate Republicans, that also including Mark Wayne Mullen, who's not exactly as tough as he makes himself out to be, it's kind of hard to find somebody that's actually solid in that state to represent the state of Oklahoma in the United States Senate. But then again, though, let everybody out there make you think that Al Sharpton suddenly cares about immigration when he talks to Democrat Senator Chris Murphy, the same one who loves to talk about gun control every time a shooting occurs. Have him think that he really and truly cares.
Rise up in various states to say to their senators that they want to see the border issue resolved. I mean, you're getting migrants beating up policemen in the streets in New York. You're seeing an influx of migrants all over the country that frankly have people outraged. And couldn't there be some kind of public pressure put in the next couple of days in some of these senator states saying, why are you allowing this to continue? Because at the end of the day, senators have to deal with their voters. And at the same time, in the bill, you give money to Gaza, to civilians in Gaza and Israel. But the border, I mean, we're looking every day at the invasion of migrants, and they're playing a time game.
This right here is good old-fashioned projection. This right here is something that the Democratic Party and the left always does. What they love to do is they love to accuse you of that they are actually guilty of. Now, guys, I am showing you some footage here, and of course, this footage you're seeing is in New York City. Some of it is in Chicago. It is between the migrants and, of course, regular, everyday people. Some of this right here is going on in the little camps, the migrant camps that are there, which, of course, are really actually concentration camps when you actually think of it. That's what the left would call them, because of curfews, the type of stuff that normally happens, like rules and regulations, things that the infected are not exactly good with, okay? But don't worry, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Basically, at the end of the day, this right here is just the left accusing you of what it is that they are already guilty of, or that they have already, let's just say that they caused. Of course, budgetary meetings are quite mundane, and of course, I'm going to show you guys some highlights from one. This one right here I thought was very interesting because obviously somebody's pointing out the obvious, which is you've also got other problems besides migrants in these very, very large cities. But let's take a look.
The point that you made about the House Republican DHS bill, including money for 22,000 more Border Patrol officers.
Total.
Agents. 3,000 more. Thank you. 22,000. 3,000 more. The it is interesting. How can it be? We hear constantly from the other side of the aisle that Republicans won't support the additional spending, and yet that's in there. How do you reconcile those two? Here's the answer for Mr. and Mrs. America if they're watching this. They only want the money for one reason: to process more illegals into the country faster. That's what they want more money for. And if you think that solves the problem of the immigrants camped out on the sidewalk outside the Roosevelt Hotel in Mr. Goldman's district, it does not. It does not solve or alleviate the problems that are destroying New York City. It does not solve the problems that are destroying Chicago and Denver, and so on and so forth.
And then, of course, that thing about the $53 million worth of prepaid credit cards, which at the end of the day is just good old-fashioned food stamps. Let's go ahead and roll this one.
Show the $53 million program partners with New Jersey's Mobility Capital Finance. Parents staying short-term at the Roosevelt Hotel will get the pilot cards to replace the hotel's food service program. The cards are refilled each month with an amount based on family size and income.
The amount is close to what's provided in the state's food stamp program. Applicants need to sign an affidavit promising only to spend the money on exclusive items or lose access to the program. If the pilot is successful, cards will be given to all illegal immigrants sheltering at city hotels, roughly 15,000 people.
City Hall officials are touting the program as a more cost-effective way for the families to get food and baby supplies, compared to the current system of providing non-perishable food.
As the text claims there is no amnesty for anyone already here. These are just some of the highlights. 50,000 new visas per year for 5 years. $650 million let over from the Trump years to build the wall. They'll start finishing, get about 50 miles. Increase ICE funds and detention capacity to 50,000. Shut down authority after an average of 5,000 encounters a day.
There's also $250 million in migrant reparations. What are migrant reparations? Biden's going to take our tax dollars and pay the countries that the migrants claim they're too scared to live in. So if Biden decides to deport a migrant, which he won't and which he hasn't ever, he's setting aside money to reintegrate the migrants back into their home countries. How does Ecuador go about reintegrating a man born and raised in Ecuador? They don't.
And now you've got an actual honest-to-God crime spree going on in New York.
Still searching for 7 people involved in a sophisticated crime operation allegedly run by migrants in New York City. And police say that this is the ringleader, Victor Pera. He is believed to be the mastermind behind the 14-member operation that involves hacking into stolen cell phones to drain victims' bank accounts. So far, police have arrested 7 suspects, all of whom are migrants, and that poses a unique challenge for investigators. Eyewitness News reporter Stefan Kim is live in the Bronx at criminal court with more on the investigation. Stefan.
Well, Lauren, those suspects are here at Bronx Criminal Court, set to be arraigned, waiting to see a judge hit with a slew of charges, including grand larceny, tampering with evidence, and criminal possession of a stolen property. Cops say they were part of a robbery pattern where thieves on scooters and mopeds were snatching women's purses and phones out of their hands, and then they would bring them to the alleged crew leader's home, where a tech guy would hack the phones, gaining access to victims' banking apps for fraudulent purchases in the U.S. and Central America. The phones were then sent to Colombia, where they were wiped clean. 5 of those men were taken into custody in that raid yesterday, including the tech guy. They're linked to a pattern of at least 62 incidents of snatching on mopeds and scooters and on the transit system. Often, cops say the scooters and mopeds were stolen too. Investigators say the suspects are recent migrants from Venezuela.
Those ones from Venezuela. You know, those ones that Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul and the Biden administration fast forwarded the claims for the work permits. It's almost like maybe somebody's starting to regret that decision now. And my God, the crime, as if to say we didn't already mention the crime, but even Stephen A. Smith, the same guy who called everybody racist for calling this stuff out, even he is finally starting to
get
see.
reelected. Donald Trump's going to be the next president of the United States. If this kind of stuff that I'm reading continues to happen in American cities, Donald Trump is a shoo-in for re-election, even if he's a convicted felon. Now, that's a damn shame. But somebody got to say it, so I'm going to say it. Did you read the story coming out of New York City? Did you read it? Involving Mayor Adams, Eric Adams, who I'm a fan of, by the way. I like him. But I don't like the story that I read over the weekend. And I think it's a story that can't be ignored. And it's talking about how $53 million in prepaid credit cards are in the process of being distributed to migrant families. Now I understand what people are thinking about, what they're wondering about here. Because they're saying to themselves, what's the problem if you're on the left? There's a big problem. Trump's going to get
the reason why Stephen A. Smith is responding to this is because people in his neighborhood where he lives at or where he grew up at in Philadelphia, they're starting to send him text messages saying that it's obviously a problem. They're starting to say that this right here is an issue, but don't worry, Stephen A. will be saying the same talking points that his white daddy will actually give him sometime tomorrow when he gets on ESPN. Truth be told about Stephen A. Smith, this is right here. He reads the scripted lines on First Take, and then, of course, he's also got his non-scripted lines, which, of course, is on his own podcast. There's a video coming out tomorrow at 12 o'clock detailing one of these said incidents where he decided to pull the race card here recently, this time over the Cliff Kingsbury hiring in Washington. Don't worry, that video is coming out tomorrow right before this one here, so make sure you guys stick around for that one. The thing is this right here. Stephen A. Smith is starting to see the writing on the wall. Of course, he's warning against it, but still at the same time, though, the thing about Stephen A. is that he knows the migrant crisis is affecting his community in particular. The thing about Stephen A. Smith is that he makes over $12 million a year, probably a lot more than that, so therefore it doesn't affect him. But he probably still does have family and friends somewhere where he probably can't take care of, or maybe they're too proud to take a check from him, or maybe he really and truly is that big of a jerk. Well, he's starting to hear from them finally, and obviously the news that he's getting is not exactly what we call pleasing. Fact of the matter is this immigration situation is probably going to get a lot worse. Even if you had signed this bill, it still would be getting a lot worse. It's not just the fact that it's a gift to the Democrats. It's the fact that it, quite frankly, screws the United States over for years to come. Of course, you'll hear me talk about the fact that it's really and truly all a game here towards the end of the video because it is an election year and it is politics. Remember, the left, they always accuse you of what it is that they themselves are guilty of, but we'll get to that here in a second. That one right there definitely went on a little bit longer than I wanted to go, but I'm pretty sure you guys can see where we're going with this. Fact of the matter is the immigration crisis is going to get a lot worse. If you really and truly want to fix this problem, Biden could just simply sign an executive order shutting down the border, and of course, the Border Patrol would do their job. But of course, the state of Texas, the National Guard, and even the State Guard in Texas, they are the ones who are actually doing the work here, as well as Republican governors, including DeSantis, including the governor of Utah, including the governor of all the other red states. Of course, this includes Mississippi, Alabama. This area also includes not only Utah, but it also includes Nevada because Lombardi has stepped up. Of course, this also includes Montana. Eventually, you're probably going to see Tennessee and a bunch of other states eventually get involved and send National Guard down there because they are the only ones who are trying to avert this crisis. But once again, though, leave it to Joe Biden to come out here and gaslight the American people and try to blame the current Republican nominee when it's obvious that the current Republican nominee can see that, yeah, this right here is a crap bill, which we will talk about here in a second because leave it to Chucky Schumer to go ahead and expose the entire operation going MSNBC and make you believe that they're doing the right thing. But don't worry, we'll get to that here in a second. But Biden.
But if the bill fails, I want to be absolutely clear about something. The American people are going to know why it failed. I'll be taking this issue to the country. And the voters are going to know that it's not just a moment, just at the moment, we're going to secure the border and fund these other programs. Trump and the MAGA Republicans said no because they're afraid of Donald Trump. Afraid of Donald Trump. Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends. It's time for Republicans in the Congress to show a little courage, to show a little spine, to make it clear to the American people that you work for them, not for anyone else. I know who I work for. I work for the American people.
Biden, you are not working for the American people on this matter. You're not. As a matter of fact, you're not even working for your own voters. How many videos have I done now on the immigration crisis, the migrant crisis in New York and Chicago, and of course Denver is involved, LA is involved, all the very, very blue cities, the cities that have the most amount of Democrat voters that sent you to be the president. Of course, we can't really talk much about 2020, but the thing is this right here. The situation has gotten worse because you obviously want more potential Democrat voters. You need more congressional districts. You want the census to come in and give you those votes. And also to go on top of this, you want to replace a voting base that's starting to turn on you. We've talked about the black voter base and black voters for a while on this channel. But of course, the thing is this right here. At the end of the day, they need to find a way to replace the people that they are losing. So what do? You bring more and more and more people in from other places. By the way, it's not just Hispanics that are coming in. It's also people from China. It's people from Africa. It's people from Islamic nations. We have ourselves a massive security risk on our hands. We've talked about this on several videos. I'll try to link them all in the description box. It'll probably be a very, very fat one. Okay? But the thing is this right here. About that Senate bill and about Republicans nuking that bill. Now, guys, before I ramble more and more and more about Biden, just know that I'm rambling about the Uniparty here more in particular. We're going to start with McConnell, and then we're going to move to Chuck Schumer and look at what's actually in the bill and exactly how bad it really and truly is, or how bad it really and truly was. Remember, it's Mitch McConnell is the one who nuked this bill. And I'm also going to be giving you guys a bit of an explanation on McConnell because, of course, he always seems to, let's just say, he seems to be the person who takes all of the ire of the Republican base. But we'll get to that here after this. Let's go ahead and roll this.
We had a press conference around noon today, said that you shouldn't have even tried to negotiate with Democrats, said this bill was designed to fail, and that it's time for you to step down as GOP leader. What's your response to that?
I think we can all agree that Senator Cruz is not a fan.
Leader McConnell, the president came out and he pointedly put the blame on Donald Trump. He said Donald Trump is to blame for the failure of this bill. Was Trump's opposition too much for you to overcome?
Well, I've said repeatedly every month I'm not going to get into comments about the race for the presidency among Republicans. I think in the end, even though the product was approved by the Border Council that endorsed President Trump, most of our members feel that we're not going to be able to make a law here. And if we're not going to be able to make a law, they're reluctant to go forward. There are other parts of this supplemental that are extremely important as well. Ukraine, Israel, Taiwan. We still, in my view, ought to tackle the rest of it because it's important. Not that the border isn't important, but we can't get an outcome.
So, quite frankly, it's just performative. I have a lot of people on Twitter saying that Mitch McConnell looks very weak here, and my response to that is, no, he doesn't look weak, he doesn't look strong, he looks the way he always does. He looks like a turtle. He looks like exactly what we call him, the turtle. Here's the truth about Mitch McConnell. Let's go back in time. By the way, Mitch McConnell is not my favorite person in the world. Don't really care for him, okay? But let's go ahead and be honest about Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, back in 2021, right as Trump was leaving office, Democrats wanted to impeach Donald Trump again, which I thought was stupid because he was leaving the office in 14 days. Look, let me say this real quick about impeachment. Impeachment, and by the way, Biden should have been impeached a long time ago. Also, so should have Mayorkas. But of course, you have Democrats who are not going to impeach their own. Here's the thing about impeachment. Impeachment was designed for one thing and one thing only. It was designed to remove leaders. It was designed to remove bad leaders. That was what it was designed to do. You go through the process, you find the evidence, you get your proof, and of course, you get 66 votes in the Senate to go along with the House. You impeach, then you move to convict. It goes to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ultimately, at the end of the day, will decide, of course, with the Senate, whether this person is to be removed from the presidency or removed from office, and then from there, stuff like loss of pension, loss of immunity, that type of stuff there. Of course, the appeals court ruled against Donald Trump, which I said they would actually do in the previous video. I'm putting this up now, so that way you guys can see. When it goes to Supreme Court, you'll see that obviously you have to impeach somebody and convict him before you can actually prosecute them, before you can actually lock them up. This was just a preliminary hearing, of course, by the D.C. Court of Appeals, and of course, it was mostly leftists on the panel. So, of course, you're going to get this kind of result. But then again, they already dropped the 1-6 case anyway, so why are we even going through this? The thing is this right here. What Mitch McConnell is doing is he is simply just being Mitch McConnell. He is simply being very, very sly and very, very shady. He brings up what Ted Cruz said, and of course you hear about what Mike Lee has said about James Lankford, and of course to go on top of that there, you probably think to yourself, wow, Republicans are divided. No, it's a show trial. That right there's what it is. Now, James Lankford's bill probably really and truly was an actual bill that James Lankford had. However, Republicans were obviously doing something so that way they could look like they were doing something, even though obviously it was terrible. And I think Lankford was the guy they sent out there. But then again, at the same time, though, it's still not a very good look from Mr. Lankford. Obviously, it's a bill that, quite frankly, that should not have been signed. When you actually look at the provisions of the bill, you're talking about 5,000 migrants being processed a day, a week, mandatory and non-mandatory, and all the money that's been given to screenings. But here's the thing, though. What Chuck Schumer said at the very, very beginning of the video, that right there is the thing that, quite frankly, should concern you. The money that's going to Ukraine, and, of course, the fact that they're talking about, putting troops on the ground in Eastern Europe to combat Putin. We'll talk about that here in a second, but the fact is this right here. Mitch McConnell, he led Democrats into an impeachment effort, only to then turn right back around and vote against the impeachment. Does anybody think that maybe what Mitch McConnell is just simply doing is just kind of like just kind of standing there for the last 2 years of his administration, of his term? I mean, he's only there till 2026. But still, at the same time, he's obviously got to play a role. Once you figure out what that role is, next thing you know, you'll find yourself not hating McConnell as much as you might think you would. A lot of people, traditional conservatives, those who don't keep up with politics, liberals, and of course this also includes MAGA, don't seem to understand that Mitch McConnell obviously has his own little role. His role is basically to be the bad guy in the Republican Party, the guy that the Republican Party can blame. The guy's like 85, 86 years old. He's not going to be the Senate Majority Leader too much longer. But that right there leaves us with Chuck Schumer. Pay very close attention to this.
Partisan as it gets, why wouldn't both sides really want this to go through?
Well, it's a great question, Mika. Look, it took a long time, 4 months of arduous negotiations. They fell off the tracks a whole bunch of times. I had to be on the phone even at midnight saying we've got to keep going. Why? We're at a turning point in America. This bill is crucial, and history will look back on it and say, did America fail itself? Why is it crucial? Well, if we don't aid Ukraine, Putin will walk all over Ukraine. We will lose the war, and we could be fighting in Eastern Europe in a NATO ally in a few years. Americans won't like that. If we don't help Israel defend itself against Hamas, that perpetual war will go on and on and on. If we don't help humanitarian aid to the starving Palestinians in Gaza, hundreds of thousands could starve. And the border, everyone has said it's chaos. A speaker, you just saw Speaker Johnson, he said it's chaos, we have to do something legislative a few months ago. But what has happened, in answer to your question, so this is crucial for America. It's a turning point. History is going to look over our shoulders and say, did we rise to the occasion? To his credit, Mitch McConnell did. But too many Republicans, including Speaker Johnson, are just scared to death of Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said he wants chaos.
What Schumer is saying about Ukraine, Russia, we'll get to that a little bit more in depth towards the end, but that right there is the thing that should scare people the most. If you guys saw that, you saw roughly $118 billion. Over $60 billion of it goes to Ukraine, which, by the way, Ukraine is a war that is being lost by the Ukrainians. I don't really consider that to be our war because obviously we don't have any boots on the ground there. No real boots on the ground at all. But still, though, the way I think about the Ukraine-Russia situation is that it's basically two turds fighting to be king turtle on top of crap mountain. Neither side is good. They really aren't. Both sides are corrupt as hell. Why are we continuing to send money to these people? Well, the thing about Ukraine is this right here. The money that we're sending, by the way, we're breaking our banks. Taxpayers are getting tired of it. They don't like it. They don't want to keep sending money over there. Why do we keep doing this, especially given the fact that Ukraine is losing? Now, Israel, on the other hand, okay, Israel's an ally. I'm pro-Israel. I can send the money there. But Mike Johnson, I think, is doing a very good job of holding his own when it comes to this immigration bill. So this immigration bill is trash. If you guys were looking at that, you saw 8,500, you saw 6,000, you saw 5,000, 4,500. You saw the money that's going to screenings and fentanyl testing and all that stuff there. But the problem is this here. This is kind of like too little too late. So what is this really? This right here in reality is just the Democratic Party accusing Republicans of doing what it is that Democrats are guilty of. They're the ones who opened up the border. They're the ones who left the border completely wide open. They're the ones bringing in a brand new voter base of people. And of course, the voter base that they have here already is pissed off with this. You see people getting mad at one another. You see crimes. And of course, it's only going to get worse. So you got to ask yourself the question, what is this? It's just a show. It's just good old-fashioned politics. That right there is what this bill really and truly is. It's just good old-fashioned politics. This is something that you need to get used to going into 2024. None of this crap right here is real out of these people. They definitely don't want to fix the problem. Truth be told is Republicans had an opportunity with Trump in office to build a wall, but they refused to do that because they want the cheap labor too. Thank God a good portion of those Republicans are gone. They've been primaried out, and of course that they know now that the Republican Party is not okay with the previous agenda of the previous party. Thank God the neocon base for the most part has been smashed. But still, as you guys can obviously see, this right here once again is a great big giant show. But even though I said this is all a show, it's still very dangerous. And the reason why it's dangerous is this here. So you want us to support Ukraine, who's losing. You want us to send money to another nation, which of course is an ally. But you want us to do this under the guise that we allow thousands of migrants in a day that we quite frankly don't know where they came from. And I already know what somebody's going to be saying. Well, they just said they're going to be vetting them. Yeah, but what about the migrants that are already here? What about all the migrants that came post-July 21st? We're going to vet those? We're going to get their information? We're going to find out where these people are? I mean, you recently had an incident where 2 cops were jumped. And of course, they did not suffer any serious injuries. But when you've got Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks basically saying these people need to be deported, it's obviously a problem. The truth be told is that the American people cannot handle this anymore. So obviously, I don't think that the American people are going to be fooled by this particular bill, this particular immigration bill. People can obviously see right through it. That's a bunch of BS. As I said before, it once again is a great big giant game. It's a great big giant show, and people automatically know nothing's not going to get done over this. This right here is just a political football being passed to one side of the aisle again. This entire situation is being used by one side of the media to blame the other party, to say you're the one who's at fault. When in reality, the people who are in charge right now are the ones who made the situation way worse, as well as the establishment Uniparty as a whole. So no wonder people are thinking that this bill, quite frankly, is a bunch of BS. And you honestly expect anybody to believe that we're going to be, putting troops on the ground in the Eastern Europe and giving more and more money to a country that's losing? Fact of the matter is that Vladimir Putin has almost got that situation closed out. Why are we continuing to send money over there? So, of course, people are angry. It's almost as if to say these people, and you got to understand something else, too, about the Senate. And I want to say this really quick. Senators get elected every 6 years. Typically, what senators do is they run on a platform, they get elected, and very, very rarely do they actually stick to what it is that they ran on. They know they're not going to go anywhere for 6 years. Let me use another example for you. John Cornyn. John Cornyn runs on being very, very pro-Texas, very, very pro-Second Amendment. He gets reelected in 2020. First thing he does when Biden gets in office is that when red flag law legislation comes up, he signs it. He votes for it. He knows he's not going to have to answer for it for another 6 years, so why not go ahead and make that mistake now? That's what these people do. That right there is kind of sort of how the game is being played. The only thing these people really and truly care about is power, and they care about the show, and that's about it. But of course, that show, of course, is starting to be exposed, and people are beginning to see right through it that once again, it's just nothing more than a bunch of BS. People are going to respond to this, and people are going to show up, and they're going to show out when it comes to this particular topic. Fact of the matter is, people are getting tired of the migrants coming across, and they can obviously see what the hell is going on. So don't make us think for 2 seconds that anybody is going to believe that the Republican Party is at fault for this immigration bill failure that they obviously rightly should have nuked, which they did nuke. Don't think anybody's going to actually blame them, especially given the fact that the person in office is the one who's been letting the people in. So just go ahead and know right now the American people are not as stupid as you might would think. But then again, at the same time, though, it's pretty obvious that they do think you are dumb. And of course, one more thing that needs to be said before I close this out. Don't you guys find it all very weird that Chuck Schumer is basically threatening the American people, saying, I'm going to send you to war, I'm going to send you to Ukraine, I'm going to send you to Eastern Europe? Don't you guys find that somewhat odd that he would just straight up threaten you with that? Just think about that. By the way, one more thing, too, before I close this video out. It's not like the Democratic Party has ever been strong on the topic of Russia. As a matter of fact, there are roots to tell you that these people have always sucked on this topic. Let me end the video on this note right here. With all of our struggles, everything that we're going on right now with our economy, everything that's going on with immigration, the border crisis, let me go ahead and take you guys back in time. The year is 1943. The United States, we have been involved in World War II, okay, since about 1941, since we got nailed at Pearl Harbor. We're fighting the Pacific Campaign, troops landing Guadalcanal, July 1942. Of course, there was also the Battle of Midway, the naval fights that we had, Coral Sea, all that type of stuff there. We fight in the Western theater of operations. We fight in Europe. FDR meets with Stalin and Winston Churchill, and the whole naughty document comes in. That naughty document basically gave Russia, Soviet Union, pretty much all of Eastern Europe. In reality, what should have happened when World War II was over with is that we should have attacked Russia right then, and we should have kicked them out of Poland, out of Czechoslovakia. We should have kicked them out of Eastern Europe. If we'd have kicked them out of Eastern Europe right then, the most Russia would have done was go on a counteroffensive, which would have then been immediately countered by us, which, by the way, would have also been followed up with nuclear missiles. Yes, I would have actually used nukes. If we'd have done what Patton said we needed to do, fact of the matter is that Russia would not be a problem to this day. Who the hell was the one who allowed Russia to be the problem? Well, the weak-kneed Democrats like Harry Truman and FDR. So I don't ever want to hear anybody talk about FDR being some great president when he himself was, for the most part, responsible for the current predicament that we are in today. Yes, I'm blaming a guy who died in 1945 for everything that we are dealing with today. Because if he had taken care of it then, we'd probably be a lot better off, and we probably wouldn't even be having a conversation about border security either. We'll talk about that at a later date. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments section. Make sure you guys please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comment section. I would love to get you guys' thoughts on this, and I'll see you guys later.